I think that the nation very much united around the Beeb, especially when there were just 3 channels. But in the current multi-channel era, surely the role of the Beeb has been diluted.
I think all the broadcasters now have far smaller audiences than I was fortunate enough to be able to communicate with. I mean, as you say, we had an audience of something like 22.5 million. I'm quite fond of that, half. And that's quite true. But then you have a look at something like Sir David Attenborough and the extraordinary legacy he has and the programmes he is still making about the blue planet, about the plants that exist, please God, will always exist if we treat them well on this fantastic planet. If you have a look at Strictly Come Dancing, which we all look forward to so much, they are still offering us programmes which the whole family can enjoy, can learn from. And, you know, I am aware, through the Silverline helpline, of the number of older people who are isolated and living on their own, who depend upon television and particularly what the BBC offers them during the day as their only company. So I think we need the World Service. We haven't described the impact of the World Service, particularly when the world is in such a terrible state. And we look at the team that the BBC has sent out to Ukraine, those extraordinarily brave reporters, Lise Doucette, Clive Byring and the others. So I think the Minister for Culture and Sport needs to be a little bit careful about putting a demolition ball through something that we would never be able to reconstruct and recreate if we did something that damaged it profoundly.
If I was Director General of the BBC, never say never, Esther, I'd have you on the box 7 nights a week. In fact, I'm amazed that GBNews hasn't already offered you a contract. But Rupert, let's talk about the Beeb. Does the country still love this organisation?
Well, I think the answer to the question is that there are people who do love the BBC. And recently, you've probably seen the 100th year anniversary where they've been running their various pieces to say how much we all love the BBC. So they've been singing their own tune. So at the end of the day, I think there are people who love them, but I'm afraid I'm in the camp with Nadine Dorries. I liked John Reith. I think he was a Calvinist Scot. He basically he founded the BBC on 3 principles, which was to inform, educate and entertain with complete impartiality. And I think now, firstly, they don't do that anymore. I think they foster envy, they foster division. They are half a cut above themselves. They outlive very often the politicians who they interview each week. And there is an arrogance about the organisation. Now, I, at the end of the day, I watched it over the Brexit debate where they didn't represent the views of the British people. We ended up with that appalling deadlock where you had the English establishment, or British establishment, who didn't accept the will of the people. And that was very much, I think, an example of the BBC being off beam. Now, I have nothing against the BBC. What I am against is a forced subscription and licence fee, which you have to pay of £159. It's been fixed for 2 years. It's then indexed, I think, for the following 3 until 2027. But I think young people don't turn to the BBC for their news. I think it's unfair on them to have to pay for their TV licence. And I would like to see the BBC go to a subscription service. And if Esther's right and everybody does love the BBC and it is part of our national fabric, then people will be quite happy to voluntarily pay for the BBC. Where I intellectually disagree with the licence fee is I don't think in today's world it works for people to be forced to pay £159 when often they don't actually watch the BBC, because I personally think a lot of what they produce now is rubbish. At the end of the day, what we do need is a subscription service where people decide, do I want it or don't I want it? And if I want it, I'll pay. And then we really will get the litmus test as to whether the BBC is loved. But whether we'll ever get there, Mark, I don't know. I think it's, we've got a situation where the establishment needs the BBC in a way, because the BBC, although it's critical and it's difficult, in the end it knows which side its bread's buttered on. And so I'm absolutely with Nadine Dorries. If it was me, if I was in power, which I'm not, as you say, I spend my life trying to generate wealth and employ people and generally do my bit for the country. I would defund the BBC tomorrow. I would make it a subscription service, and I would allow people to choose whether they subscribe. I think to get a criminal record for not paying £159, particularly when they've resiled on the agreement they made with the government over the over 75s, is frankly not acceptable.
Rupert Lowe, just briefly, if you can, before I bring the panel in and get back to Esther, you said that you would defund the BBC tomorrow. Would that not be an act of cultural vandalism?
Not at all, no. I think, as I said, Mark, I think they foster division. They're innately anti-English. I listened to an interview the other day between Nick Robinson and George Eustice. Now, George Eustice, I'm a farmer. George Eustice is not my favourite person. But I couldn't believe Nick Robinson's arrogance when he was interviewing George Eustice. And it's an example of how they know they're going to be there well beyond that person who they're interviewing is going to be voted out of power. So there is a degree of arrogance which I think is just unacceptable now. So I'd be quite happy to see them stand on their own 2 feet, which I think they should be doing.